Hello, hello, and welcome to Gate 41 and welcome to a new solar cycle. Happy Rave New Year. Today we are in Gate 41 in the first line, which is called Reasonableness. Ra said that at its most mundane level, Gate 41 is the difference between being cool and being a hothead. And we see that in this first line, which is, of course, the truth of the hexagram, the foundation of the gate. Reasonableness is both the reasonable desire that ultimately a goal can be achieved and progress can be attained. And it's also the unreasonable desire that leads to a burning of energy, and that burning of energy leads to dilemma. The 41st gate is a gate of fantasy, and it is a pressure that literally it's the pressure to enter into a new experience, to gain experience in the world. And it is a pressure that pressurizes the emotional system. It pressurizes the 30th gate. It pressurizes feelings. It pressurizes desire. And it is this very power to pressurize desire that makes gate 41 so powerful. And you can't have all your fantasies at once because you will lose your power. This is something that 41 has to recognize and accept, really. You get one, and then you go on to the next. This is reasonableness. Reasonableness becomes the key. There's a lifetime learning here. Every line in Gate 41 has a lifetime learning. And here it says the appropriate delegation of responsibility. The process for the 41 can be clearly seen here, really, in this introduction line, which is about knowing when to pressure the feeling. Now, that's not awareness, because we're not talking about awareness with Gate 41. It's a pressure and it's a motor. What it is timing. The root center has a lot to do with timing. So how can we possibly know when the right time is to pressure the feeling in the 30? And of course, we can't know, not mentally. This isn't an intellectual exercise. We can only be correct in our timing if we are correct in ourselves, in our own nature. So if you have the 41, if you are living out your definition, your authority, living out your type, then the 41 is going to operate properly. And you'll have the right timing inherently. You will know when to share your fantasies, to stimulate, to pressurize a feeling. And it can be wonderful for you to have this feeling, this fantasy inside. But don't ever think that it is more than that for you. Everything about the abstract stream is about our process of expectation. If you do one step after the other, we assume that we're going to get somewhere, because this is the nature of the abstract process. The assumption of capability is when you look inside you and you see that you have this fantasy and that you think, oh, because you've got this fantasy, you can actually do it. But it doesn't mean that. And this reality can be difficult to live with sometimes. Remember that the headline above all the lines in this Gate 41 reads, the limitation of resources which maximizes development of potential. This is telling us that everything about the human experience is that it takes much more than just our basic setup to get through this life. Nothing is a given for us. And if we don't use our imagination, if we are not creative in our process, then we're going to have enormous difficulties on the human experiential way. And this is also that recognition that not every experience should be actualized. Some of them, many of them, many of them, really, it's better just to dream about them or to read about them or go see a movie about them rather than to personally have the experience itself. One of the things about the collective process is that not everybody has to go through and experience each ingredient, because when you get to the close of the process, it's all about reflection. And through that reflection is the ability to store the history of all of those experiences that have been accomplished, because then those experiences can guide us successfully towards our future, whilst at the same time not be the kind of experiences that everybody needs to fulfill. There are those who will be able to make their way through an experience and benefit others through the knowledge of it. You know, the experiences that you yourself, despite your dreams, you know, that you'll be able to have access to those experiences, you know, those feelings of, yeah, I can do this, and oh, it's always my dream. But actually, you will never in your life be able to accomplish that. And yet you can still have the benefit of taking in the knowledge about that experience because somebody else has had it. This is the sharing that's in the collective. This is the benefit of the sharing that is in the collective. And it's also the real theme about the delegation of responsibility. The exaltation says the imagination to make the very best out of very little. Coolness, where the energy to release feelings is selective. The first line looks inwards. It has no capacity to look outwards. It is interested in what the essential mechanism is. What is fantasy? That's the question the first line always asks. You know, when the first line of a 41 child is around it, what they want is to know the difference between what is real and what is fantasy. And very often they don't know that. This is a huge part of that. The childhood development is in finding out what is fantasy, what is real. They want to grasp it right away. What is that? What is that fantasy? And very often it's an interesting journey for the parents to go through that, to educating their children as to what is a fantasy and what is a reality, and what is the proper delegation of responsibility. And remember, the 41st gate has the potential to release their own feelings and also the potential to condition the release of feelings in others. And this is also a responsibility. We are dealing with the root center, with its adrenaline, with its stress. The root center carries with it enormous power. It's a tremendous fuel that is at work here. So the appropriate delegation of responsibility is about how to use that energy correctly. What fantasy, what feeling do you focus on? Don't get caught up in just seeing that fantasy. If you're someone who is focused on feeling good about the day and feeling bad about your work, and you're a 41-1, then that's going to create some discomfort in you. You know, you either focus on the good feeling, that it's a nice day and everything's wonderful, or you focus on the bad feeling because you're at work and you don't like it and whatever. But don't try and focus on both of them at the same time, because that won't work. It will not be productive for you. It will not be a healthy fueling of your unique potential. Remember that we have mirrors, we have a dualistic interplay in design. The splenic system represents our immune system, among other things, our protection from disease. We know that it's really focused on health. But recognize as well that the solar plexus system, this powerful motor, this emotional system that we have, there's illness that strikes there as well. Emotional illness, emotional ill health, a lack of balance emotionally. When these fuels are properly recognized and we live out the nature as it's supposed to be lived out, then the emotional system will benefit from that. It becomes healthier. It is getting a healthier fuel, you could say. These are pressures and they do carry a great deal of force, and they're not to be underestimated. You don't need to have all of the feelings to get everything out of it. One focused feeling can take you all the way. This exaltation is fixed in Neptune, and that tells us that reasonableness can be a fuzzy business. The foundation of fantasy is automatically veiled and can be mysterious. In the detriment, we have a tendency in understanding to assume capability, leading to strain, the hothead, the urge to release feelings. 41s have that potential in them to hold all of those experiences, but they don't have any need themselves, within themselves, to fulfill any of them. That comes in the 30. Because the 41 is not an awareness, it's just the pressure. But the 30, once it gets into the emotional system, then it becomes part of the wave. We get the hope that the feeling could bring, or the pain that may come. And remember, it's collective. Because it's collective, it's not personal. And there is a potential for a lot of people to get hurt in this stream of feeling. Because this stream is full of all kinds of human pain. The impersonal is taken personally. The need for an experience doesn't mean that you love or care for the person you're having that experience with, you're sharing that experience with, because this is collective. It just mechanically requires sharing. The fantasy is fundamentally social in that sense. It's fundamentally open. Everybody shares their fantasies because it is collective. The exaltation and the detriment, they talk about the coolness and the hothead, the cool and the hot of the pressure to feel. This is the fundamental duality in fantasy. Fantasies are either cool or they're hot. Coolness, where the energy to release feelings is selective. In other words, one is clear about one feeling at a time. And the hothead can get into a great deal of trouble in life because they have within them this need to feel out what is essentially nothing more than a fantasy, with very little odds of that fantasy actually being realized. This is lower trigram. It's only the upper trigram that really have the skills to integrate with the energy on the other side and start to bring that fantasy into a feeling. For the lower trigram here, the fantasy is an internal business. The first line is simply there to look into the nature of feeling and fantasy and to enjoy and immerse itself in its rich imagination. But the moment it tries to live that out, can skip over into crisis. 41st hexagram is a nice meditation. It's a process, it's a journey. In the first step, we can recognize that human evolution was rooted in focusing on the feeling, and then you get the experience. Now, this is how we learn. If we are sitting there and having a zillion feelings, and we're not moving. We're just sitting there having a million experiences. There's nowhere to go. So the first thing that distinguished us was our capacity to have a feeling, to have a fantasy, to focus on that, and to hold the focus until the potential, which is the 30th gate, to hold that potential and begin a process of actually manifesting that as an experience as it moves up through the human experiential way into that manifesting channel of the 36-35. This is our distinguishing feature in a way as a human, being able to have that experience and move up through it and get through the crisis to the progress and the change. The grounding. Let's move on. The grounding is coming through gate 31 in the first line, which is called manifestation. And it has a lifetime learning that says influence cannot exist in a vacuum. This is not about having a natural capacity to be able to lead, even though this is the gate of leading and influence, but it's having a natural capacity to be able to integrate with those who've asked you or who want your help. Because that is the gift that comes through this when you're chosen by other people. And there is always the genetic continuity. So both of these gates are projector gates. So there is that invitation that comes through for the 41 before it shares its fantasies to be invited to do so. Before it puts its imagination out into the world, or before it starts pressurizing gate 30, where's the invitation? And is there a natural capacity to lead through the fantasy? Where is that link that comes through? Can you find that? Can you explore that for yourself and see what comes through? We still have the channel of transitoriness activated at the moment. We have it with Neptune is in gate 36 and Jupiter is in gate 35. So we have that until February the 10th. This is the whole planet being conditioned by the desire for the new experience, by the journey through the experiential way, the restlessness for change, the desire and hunger for progress, possibly precipitated by a crisis that may be veiled from us because it's in Neptune. It's an emotional channel, the channel of transitoriness. It's a manifestor channel, so there can be great impact here. And if this is not an energy that you carry in your design, see if you can bring some awareness to it, whether there's a pressure to jump into new experiences or whether you're feeling very inexperienced, because that's the energy in 36. It's inexperience, it's a vulnerability that your inexperience is going to get caught out. And it's a mirror to the 48, where you feel like you never have enough depth and you feel like very vulnerable because you feel, again, you're going to get caught out by not having that the depth, the information in your well that people can pull out. Here on this side, it's the inexperience of feelings, and it's specifically really around the sexual experience. So you can find in gate 36 and quite a lot of, what's the word? What's the word? Promiscuity. That's the word. Which is driven by this need to have the experience, to feel experienced, and therefore less vulnerable. So this is all part of this feelings that come through on the 36, 35, this channel of transitoriness. So I don't know. And there's the boredom that comes in as well that's around this. So it's interesting to see. So in February, around February the 10th, when it's the 36 that's moving on, I think, isn't it? Hold on. So it's Jupiter. Neptune is staying a little bit longer in the 36. So it's Jupiter that's moving out of the 35. So around February the 10th or so, just you could tune in and see if you notice a difference. The moon, the Bella Luna, has been in gate 50 since 857. This is the splenic gate of values, carrying the fear of responsibility. And next, the moon moves into gate 28 at 2023. We're in GMT, remember? The gate of the game player here, fueled by its harmonic gate 38, to find out what is of value in life and to live fully, to find that purpose in life, to find the fight that you want that's going to keep you alive. Emotionally as much as anything. So it's not emotional, so scrub that bit, but it is that feeling of I need to find my fight in order to feel alive. It's that kind of thing. It's individual. It's a deaf gate. It's a stubborn gate. It's in the splenic system, and it has a fear of dying before finding. It's a fear of death, but it's the fear of dying before you find your purpose in life. Or yeah. Finally, gate 44 at 7:47 tomorrow morning. This is the last of the splenic gates for this moon cycle. It's the gate of alertness pointing up to the ego, and gate 26. It's a tribal gate. It's the gate of human resources, of knowing how to place the right person in the right job in order for the whole tribe to benefit. So this is us up and running into gate 41. And so again, I wish you all joy and good things for this new solar cycle. And I will be back tomorrow with the second line. Until then, be reasonable or be unreasonable. Be cool or be a hothead. But whatever you're going to be, enjoy it and go gently with your gorgeous self.